Welcome back. My name is Erin Bates. Thank you for joining us this Friday afternoon on Newzroom Africa. We're going to keep reflecting on SONA of 2023. It's been nothing short of eventful. That's how last night's State of the Nation address could be viewed, or was indeed, if you were watching here on Newzroom Africa, from the EFF's attempts to storm the stage, bringing to a halt the start of the program, to when the president did get going. It was, of course, the energy crisis which dominated the address, and rightly so. President Cyril Ramaphosa has declared a state of disaster in order to hastily deal with the country's debilitating electricity crunch. But there's also opposition to this new national state of disaster. The DA, hot on the heels of that announcement, said it would take the matter to court. For reaction to the story and some analysis of the State of the Nation address for this year, I'm joined now by political analyst Dr. Ntsikelelo Breakfast, who is joining us from Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape. Dr. Breakfast, thank you for holding on while we just dipped into that address by Secretary General Mbalula. To start off with, what is your overall take on the President's performance in this State of the Nation address?
Yeah, I think on the whole, there's nothing that stood out for me. I don't think that the speech by the President last night lifted the spirits of many South Africans. I don't think that many people found comfort in what he said, because it was a regurgitation of the things that we know or the things that he has said before. Suffice to say, he only spoke about anti-poverty strategies that are going to be implemented in the form of the building of 2 dams, and focused on the economic zones, the one down here in Gqeberha, Kucha, and the one in East London. And also, of course, there was a great deal of emphasis on the issue of power outages and the new ministry that he intends to introduce. Of course, I mean, in the early 90s, if you remember, we had a minister without a portfolio that was responsible for Jay Naidu. He was responsible for the implementation of the RTP. So I think it's going to be something like that. I'm not saying that it will be the exact way, but what I'm saying is that the president, I mean, the constitution makes a provision for him to pick and choose whoever he wants to appoint, or whichever ministry he wants to institute. But the question is whether are we not going to have a duplication, because we still have another ministry, that of Uncle Gwarimantash, because that one of Uncle Pravin Kodano, I think, was collapsed according to the resolution of the ANC. So the fear is that there might be some overlaps there. So yeah, I mean, that's a part. But you know, when the president was speaking, what crossed my mind was, what kind of a budget speech are we going to have?
Yes.
Yes, because if you have a plan, it stands to reason that that plan must be aligned to a budget.
How do you bankroll that plan? I'm going to stop you there. You're jumping ahead of me. We will get to the alignment between the budget and SONA. I know it's something you're keen to discuss. But just to hone in on your point about Jay Naidu and this new ministry, we now have a Minister of Energy. And let's hope they have a lot of proverbial energy, as well as being able to tackle the load-shedding energy crisis in the country. Fikile Mbalula also mentioned Naidu and the RDP work that he did, saying that this new minister in the presidency will effectively be a kind of project manager, and that it speaks to the president's sort of mindfulness about the energy crisis. This is someone who, before he became president, was head of the Eskom war room. His presidency has been beleaguered by the power problems in the country, which are the worst we have ever seen, even at the height of state capture, with issues in terms of mines like Optimum. We didn't see the kind of load shedding we have today. Now, the president doesn't run Eskom, we know that, but he himself said the power crisis is an existential threat to the country and the social fabric. What is the political risk here if this new minister and this new program fails?
I think the political risk is that, first of all, some people are concerned that President Ramaphosa is going to have too much power in his office, because there were people who raised eyebrows in the beginning when operations of the security architecture were attached to his office. I think that did not sit well with a lot of people throughout the length and the breadth of the country. So in the same way, even this move also, it begs the question about the power that is centered around the office of the president. But the idea is good, though, because it signifies that government is doing something about the issue in question. In theory, but in practice, I think we shall see how it goes, whether this new ministry will be able to get the job done or not.
Thank you. Let's look then quickly at some of the other politicians in the room at various points in various positions, even up onto the platform itself and nearing the podium of the president. What did you make of the EFF's conduct during SONA yesterday?
I think we need to hear different voices outside the state in order to make our democracy to flourish. I think protests are an expression of discontentment. Protests are an expression of unhappiness, and they are needed. But I get the sense that there was also an element of politics of spectacle. I think the question is whether that conduct is in the interest of the country. Is it something that a lot of people want to see? I think that's the question that I've been grappling with. I mean, their demands, I think they can be entertained. They want the president to account for pala, for power outage. That is all well and good. But the timing, I think, might be a bit of a concern for other people.
All right, let's get to the topic you're eager to talk about, and that does take us forward into the next 2 weeks in terms of what's going to be coming up in Parliament of 2023. The alignment or not, which you anticipate between what the President has raised in the State of the Nation address and what you'll be listening out for when it comes to the first budget speech of this year.
Yeah, so I expect a expansionary fiscal policy because the President spoke about infrastructural projects, blah, 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 anti-poverty strategies. To me, what comes to my mind is an expansionary fiscal policy, meaning that the government is going to spend more on development as opposed to fiscal discipline, which is the reduction of government expense. But the problem that some economists have been raising surrounding the expansionary fiscal policy, I'm not saying that it's wrong, is the fact that government tends to spend more than what it has. And that begs the question about issues of budget deficit. Because in my opinion, in this country, we don't have a developmental state as yet. But if you look at that model from Asian tigers, but I think we have a welfare state, we don't have industries and so on like other countries in Asian tigers.
So if we do sort of hone in on that, it's something actually Fikile Mbalula raised in his briefing this afternoon as well on behalf of the ANC around the need to address the poorest of the poor, the indigent, and ensure that there are proper services for them, that they receive the necessary state support with the balancing act that one inevitably has to do in government. There's the power crunch, there's developmental projects, the need to rebuild institutions, the NPA, for example, the police service and others come to mind. And then there's the Auditor General, whose role is to make sure that government spending is correct, including at a municipal level. How much confidence do you have after the State of the Nation address that the likes of the President and his cabinet are mindful of where money is bleeding through the system and efforts to ensure that that stops as soon as possible?
Look, I mean, I support the issue of social security because we need to look after the poorest of the poor. There's no way our democracy can flourish if we are turning a blind eye to poverty, inequality, unemployment. I think those are major security threats which are posing a serious danger to our democracy. But at the same time, I think also you can't solve problems by throwing money around. You need skilled people, within the state machinery, within administration. And I don't think that we have that at the moment. I get the sense that the ANC has not addressed the issue of cadre deployment. The way they're doing it is not right. They tend to deploy people willy-nilly as opposed to deploying people strategically to get the job done. And I like what you said about local government, because local government is an important sphere because it is closer to the people on the ground. That's where you need to get the job done. And year in and year out, AG says that, municipalities cannot account how money is spent at that level.
Certainly. I'm so glad you mentioned cadre deployment. One wonders if there are meetings planned or afoot around who's going to be our Minister of Electricity and whether that will indeed be another fulfillment of the cadre deployment policy or something else. Dr.